Hello, my spooky friends. This is your host, John, and welcome to another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. And the great spooky guests continue on the podcast today. I have Natasha from Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. Welcome, Natasha.
Hey, thanks for having me. I would also like to point out that I, too, am actually in the Midwest, so this is perfect. I cover all your bases, and I'm in the right spot. Location.
Location. You are in what state again? Indiana? Is that correct?
Yep. Yes. Good old corn state. However, I'm also allergic to dust and mold. I'm in the wrong state. Yeah. I'm literally like allergic to my life. It's a doozy.
Boy, I tell you, that is something that people don't understand with Midwestern people. They think like, because we're flyover states, right? We're just like, whatever. Yeah. We'll just fly right over. I ain't going to go to Indiana, whatever. But people don't understand some of the most spooky, creepy conspiracies, you name it, are here in the Midwest. It's like, no doubt,
well,
right?
I don't know if I'd say most. So I've noticed just from my research and stuff, a lot of it happens more East Coast. Mm-hmm. The Massachusetts, the Maine,
Sure.
Where the hell is West Virginia? Is that south, right? It's south and to the right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry,
right.
I'm really not good with geography. I almost failed that class. I don't know. When they gave you the blank map and you had to put all the states in, I had like Indiana and like what was around us, and then blank. And I was like, I have no idea. I was like, one of them, the little baby one's Rhode Island or something. And I was like, I don't know. Yeah. It's rough. But I don't need to know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we have this now. We right.
I don't get out much. I'm kind of a hermit, so I don't need to know where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that either, right? Because, especially now where it's, not to pile on, poor Natasha is doing her best because it's really hot in the Midwest right now.
Yeah.
She's kind of like me struggling through it because the humidity is like nuts.
I kid you not, day before yesterday, I got home from work and I pulled into like my little carport and I walked maybe 20, 30 feet to my door. By the time I got out of my car and to my house, I had a physical layer of moisture on me from it was like walking through like a mist chamber or whatever at like Holiday World. I think it's Holiday World that has that.
And I know our Florida listeners, which I'm sure we have Florida listeners, both of us, are like, shut the hell up. Because in Florida, humidity is like, you're dead. It's crazy.
I just thought of something. They say a lot of older people live in Florida, right? You retire and you go south for the winter and then you just stay there forever.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because old people are always so fucking cold. They're always bitching about being cold. And then down there they don't. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like a throne's stow away from hell itself.
That could be.
You'll never catch me dead in Florida. It's not going to happen.
So, Natasha, tell me a little bit about yourself and your podcast so my spooky friends can find you. And hey, tell me a little bit, what do you cover and stuff?
I'm a bit strange and unusual, both on the podcast and off. So we do, I say we, I also say we, like there's me and my split personality that does it. Myself and whichever random guest I grip off the street or whatever. I just troll the internet for speakers, which it works out because so far everybody's been like super cool. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right?
I kind of do a little bit of everything. Again, I've tried to find a name where I didn't have to explain it a lot. Mm-hmm. Although somehow Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy still makes people ask. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on, how thick they are, but the only thing is the creeps part is a little bit, I did that on purpose. Creeps is I could do anything. So right now it's primarily I do paranormal investigations at places. I try to save up and go once or twice a year to actually investigate. And
Nice.
I'll find the place, I'll research the history behind the place and the land, any accidents or deaths that happened on the premises. And then I go into what you can find online as far as things people have seen, heard, or just experienced in general. And then if it's a place that I've been to, I'll put if I get any evidence in my investigation, I'll put that in and I'll talk about things that happened to me while I was there. So I like to try to get, even if I've not been there, I'll sometimes try to find people who have been here or there, whatever.
Yeah.
So that way they could kind of add to it, because I feel like it adds a little veracity. Just, because if you just read the internet, I mean, come on, you might as well just surf Reddit. And like, if that's the case, then no one knows. Anybody can put anything out there. And I like to have people that have firsthand experiences. Yeah. So we do those. Cryptids, we have a little bit of a little thing there too. They're my favorite. No offense to the other guys, but cryptids are my babies. I love them. And I have so much fun. Either I'll go in and we'll cover what it is, where it is, what does it look like, what does it do, any kind of description we can find, and basically try to just get and break it apart so that we can then analyze it. And if somebody has an experience with it, we'll talk about that. I do some interviews with people that have seen Dogman and Bigfoot, so they're on here. I had a couple of those. Some of them we just talk about the cryptid, and then at the end it's kind of, what do you think? Is it bullshit? Is it real? Right. Could it be possible? What are the options? And then for my conspiracies, I don't do it's not like I'm going to have a whole episode on Illuminati or anything like that. I don't want to do that, because I feel like if the conspiracy is big enough for people to have heard about it, that means that everyone knows about it, or a large portion of people know about it. And I don't want to be like beating a dead horse. And even though you can tell different things, I don't want people to come in and be like, oh, and see, oh, we're talking about this, that, or the other, like Kennedy. We're talking about Kennedy. Oh, it's the same story over and over and over.
Yeah, right.
And I don't like to do that. So what I like to do is mainly they come in on some cryptids and a lot of Bigfoot conversations. We have them. And I also I interview like authors and ufologists, people with abduction scenarios and stuff like that. And then I like to kind of, sprinkle on the conspiracy, right? So if we talk about Bigfoot, then we don't just talk about Bigfoot. Then I'm like, oh, perfect opportunity. Do you think that they're an animal? Do you think that they're alien? Do you think that they're interdimensional? Like, so I try to, and I like to play devil's advocate, even if I know I'm talking out my ass, like Jim Carrey style. I full-heartedly sometimes come up with these crazy ideas or theories that no one else has thought of, just because I'm like, well, why not, right? If we don't have any proof that it is, we don't have any proof that it isn't. So it could be anything. And what about, and my brain works in mysterious ways, so sometimes triggering it like that, I come up with a lot more ideas and stuff as I talk to people, instead of just me thinking about it, because it'll be something they mention or something like that that triggers it. And I like to interview different people that have no relation at all, to hear what are the similarities, what are the differences. Is your location different? Is the creature different? How so? All of that kind of stuff. And then the one that people really like for me is, I'm, again, a bit odd. I don't like to put a label on it because it makes me feel a little weird.
Sure.
But I have a ton, and I mean like ton, of paranormal experiences that I have myself. And they happen all the time, and they have since I can remember. So to me, it's normal. Yeah. But some people are like, oh my gosh, that's so creepy. And I'm like, oh no, it happens all the time. It's fine. This is another Tuesday, whatever. I have a lot of those, and I'm very good at, people can't get away with anything with me. I know when you're lying. I know why you're lying. And I know how you're lying. So don't lie to me. Usually.
All right.
There's some times where we'll play games with people. I used to be like the party favorite. I would go to a party, or we'd be doing something, and we would play games where I could guess, a person. Like, we could pull a person out of like my phone book. Well, contacts list. Sorry, millennials. And I could be like, here, I'm going to give you the phone and I'm going to tell you to ask them questions. And then I am going to tell you what they're going to tell you before they answer. And I have no idea who these people are or whatever. It's just that I have to at least know who they are to connect with them. So it could be, think of an animal, any animal. And I'll be sitting there, and one time these people like were freaking. They were high. I was sober because I can't do this crap whenever I'm drunk or anything. But they were pretty high. And I was like, ask them to think of an animal. And they're like, what's that? And I was like, it's an elephant. And they're like, what? I'm like, trust me. And then the phone went off and it just said elephant. And I said, now do a color. Yeah, I said, ask them to think of a color. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, purple. They're like, what? And I'm like, purple. And then he's like, okay. And then phone goes off. It's purple. And it was like, and we did this for like 10 minutes.
That's awesome.
And I have no idea. And I'm like, and it's just things that some people, I don't know what it is. I'm just super connected. The creepy thing is I sometimes have dreams that actually happen. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're not so good.
Yeah.
And so it's always kind of weird. So I'm on baby number 12. Not me personally. But I am on calling where I call and I'm like, hey, I had a dream about you last night. Congratulations, you're pregnant and it's a boy or whatever.
What?
And they don't even know they're pregnant. So now people are afraid when I actually call them because I don't really call anybody. So if I call them, they're like, oh my God, please tell me you didn't have a dream. And I'm like, no, you're good. And I've been right. So far I've been right 12 in a row.
Whoa.
But I've also been able to tell people, well, I don't tell them. Correction. I don't tell them because I always feel I'm not confident enough, even though this has happened to me 7 or 8 times now. I'm not confident enough to break this kind of news. But I'll have a dream where someone dies. And usually they don't make it any more than 48 hours.
Ooh.
And usually how I think they're dying is how they die. So it's a little creepy. And I don't really, because what if you're wrong, right? What if I'm wrong? I don't want to go out and be like, hey, you're going to like get hit by a bus in 2 days.
Yeah.
So I low key, I'll tell my husband, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. That's really interesting to me, Natasha, because one of the things I did a medium on, and she was kind of, in your realm, what you're talking about, and she never told anybody though. And she had something where when she was now this is crazy to me, and I already talked about this on another episode, but she said when she was a high schooler, a teenager, she knew she had a gift. Like she knew because she would go into her high school and it would be like people talking to her. Like she would be like, oh, that person's having issues. Oh, this person's going to have this. And she said it was like, oh my God, just coming at her. And then eventually she just got sick of like hiding it. So she just came out and told her parents, I feel I'm gifted. I have all this stuff. And now she is using her gifts, and she's like studied for them and made sure she, everything professional. So she's not one of those ladies.
I would love to learn how to better have control. Because like, I don't control them. I don't ask for them. It just happens when it happens. And on one hand, I'm like, I could do so much good for people if I could learn how to use what's happening to me. But I was raised in a very religious house. So when I tried to explain that something was wrong with me, even though my mom knew that there's also in my family tree, there's some witches down the line.
Oh, nice.
And they're aware of it, but it's like, I was spawn of Satan because I could do these things. And I was like, well, it's not like I was like, here, let me cut a chicken and let me tell the future. I'm like, no, I'm in bed and this shit just happened. I'm like, and I totally get it. You walk in a room and you can feel, I hate crowds, and you can feel everything. If someone's having a bad day. I even had a friend of mine one day, so I'm always hot, just so you know, I'm always like 200 degrees all the time. Doesn't matter. And one day I was freezing my ass off. I don't know what happened. I was good. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I was shivering. I went and got fuzzy onesie jammies on. I looked like a little toddler watching my Cartoon Network. Okay. Loser. And I'm all fuzzed up. I got a blanket. I got socks. I mean, and I was so cold. I was like, what the fuck is happening? And I know that there's a person that I'm very connected to. I still don't understand why or how or anything, but I know that we're very connected. It's like we must have known each other in another time.
In a past life, sure.
Yeah, I sent a message and I was like, hey, how's it going? Just trying to be like a little curious to be like, is something going on? And they go, it was like 2 hours later. And then I finally started to warm up a little bit. I was like, oh, thank God. And then my phone goes off and I look and they're like, yeah, it was a little bit of a rough morning. I was working in the freezers all morning.
Whoa.
And I was like, you son of a bitch.
Bitch.
Like, you're a dick. But it's stuff like that. Or I'll be like super angry. Like one time I was super angry and I sent a message. I was like, hey, is everything okay? Because I was like, something feels off. Like I just am super angry. And apparently as soon as I sent a message, they were walking and their dog had like pushed something in the floor and they'd stepped on it. And like as the phone beeped, they were actually cussing and pulling the thing out of their foot. And I was like, can we? I was like, how do you sever it? Like, I don't know how to like cut the cord, man. But it's really crazy. Right. And you can just know. And I'm just like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, you're different. Something's off. It's just you can just feel it.
Speaking of crazy and demons, how's that for a segue?
Oh, I totally left out one part too. I was like, oh, I never even talked about any of my stuff. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We'll segue again. Pull it back, Paul.
One of the things Natasha and I were talking offline, and she was saying, "Hey, John, if I have issues or something's going on, I have this really dick spirit here, that's kind of messing with me and stuff."
I'm pretty sure it's a straight demon. That. Well, you had asked me if there was a particular paranormal event, and so far, the one that kind of creeps everybody out, which I think is kind of funny because now it's really weird. It should have scared the holy crap out of me, right? Should have.
Yeah.
And it was my very first encounter. So when I was as I was a kid, apparently I would talk to people that weren't there. Well, I thought they were there, but other people didn't think they were there. They just assumed that I had imaginary friends or whatever. I always knew when something bad was going to happen. I always knew all of that, but I didn't actually acknowledge and know that I was encountering something not here until I was like 15. I had just got my driving permit, of course. I took driver's ed. I did the whole thing, put a lot of time in.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I don't know what the hell my mom was doing, but she needed sugar. Now, I'm going to give you a little diagram here to kind of explain this. So,
okay,
on the land I grew up on, there was a house in the very back. We had a pond, and on the back side of the pond, there was a house. It was my great-great-grandparents built it, like forever ago. And then it got so run down, then it was condemned and blah, 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 blah. And my aunt and my uncle lived in a house that was on the other side of the pond. Well, everybody died. My aunt and uncle were here. And so they tore the old house down, which I remember being in it. And that's a whole nother story. Actually, now that I think about it, that kind of probably makes a little more sense. But anyway, they tore the house down and they built a really nice house back there. And then we moved into their old house. So you have not really a circle driveway. It's like you have the main road and there's two driveways. One goes straight into my house. One goes straight back to her house. But the drive actually kind of breaks off. So it's like an oval where we're at. But it's kind of like an oval with a stick at the end. Like a lowercase d, I guess. Okay. So my aunt and uncle are here. My mom needs sugar. She's like, here, can you go get sugar? And I was just excited because I had my learner's permit. So I was like, oh, can I drive the van? I could have walked. Granted, it was pitch black outside, but whatever. And my mom's like, yeah, here, take the van. I was like, okay, awesome. And I'm thinking I'm hot shit driving the van. And I get in, I close the door, and I was just going up there. I didn't even have to do it. But I put my seatbelt on. I was checking my mirrors, everything that I learned in driver's ed, which is stupid. I didn't need to, but I did anyway. And, I'm looking and I put my hands at 10-2 and I'm like, okay, all right, we're good. And I leaned forward to turn the key over And the moment I went to turn the key over, it was like every single hair on my body just stood up. I mean, it was like cold chills. Everything was stood up. And immediately I was like, somebody is sitting next to me. Like, I could just feel something over next to me.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, just kind of looking out the windshield. And I'm like, okay. I was kind of scared. And it was in the passenger seat. And I was like, okay. And out of the corner of my eye, which normally, you know, you see something out of the corner of your eye and you look and it goes, right? Normally, most people have that. It happens to them all the time. So I was just thinking, I'm going to look and it's just going to be gone. It's whatever. But I need to at least look because it's creeping me out that it's sitting right here and I can just feel it staring at me like daggers. And I really slowly just kind of turned towards my passenger seat and it never moved. It sat there, just dead eye, watching me.
Wow.
And it literally looked like it was sitting in the seat. It was kind of like a domey on the top. Like, okay, have you ever seen Spirited Away? There's a character called No Face. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you take No Face, but take his mask off, that was sitting in my passenger seat. And the weirdest part was it was like leaning kind of like towards the dash and like turned towards me like it was waiting for me to look. Like the whole time it was just like waiting. And it had its arm up on the dashboard. And it had these huge, long, sharp fingers that were just resting on the dashboard, which were, So kind of, if you think the Grinch, Jim Carrey, those long, okay, if you make them not fuzzy and they're just sharp and jet black, those are what it looked like.
Yikes.
Yeah, and it was just, it had one on the thing, and we were just having a stare down. Like, it was all black except two big sockets where I guess eyes could have been, but it didn't have any facial structure, really. It was just these two darker spheres, and the only way I could describe it is almost like it was darker, like blacker than black. Like, instead of it just being black, it was void of all color. Like, it was sucking stuff in like a black hole, is what it felt like. And so I'm just staring at it, not knowing what the hell's happening. And I'm just like,
run.
I'm like, and I was looking and like I blinked a couple times thinking it would just go away when I opened my eyes, and it didn't. It was just staring at me. And after a couple minutes, I could almost, it felt like it was pulling something like out of my chest. I mean, I couldn't see it, but it just felt like something was literally grabbed a hold of something way inside me and just pulling it in, just taking it from me and sucking it out. And I don't know what, or I don't know. It was just, it never said anything. And the weird part was, is I didn't really feel scared. I was more like,
really?
What's it, like confused. I didn't feel scared at all. I was just like, well, this, like, is this happening? Like, what's going, because I was fully awake. It's not like I was asleep and had sleep paralysis. No, I was awake. I was getting ready to drive the damn car. And I closed my eyes and I grabbed the steering wheel really tight. I was like, you have to leave. You have to leave. I was like, you can't be here. Get the fuck away from me. Like, I'm just like talking to the thing, like, go away, go away, go away. And I like, you know, kind of squeaked one eye open and looked, and it was gone. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I just put off down to my aunt's house and I get the sugar. And when I was coming back, I was coming down that straightaway. Oh, it gets better. Yeah. So I was coming down the straightaway, and right before it turned to go towards my house, that straight one goes all the way through, and right where the road meets the drive, there's like I want to call it a street light, but it's not a real country bumpkin street light. I'm talking wooden pole.
Yeah.
And it looked like what was like a metal trash can lid is what looked like. And then it had this bulb that was weird, right? Yeah. So I'm getting ready to turn, and this thing, oh my God, it's so gross. It comes out from under my van. And like it's crawling on its belly, but not just crawling on its belly. I'm talking when it's crawling, its arms, its elbows are up in the air. Its knees are up in the air like a cricket, and it's scurrying. Like it's doing this weird, kind of like the Ring where it's kind of like a glitchy movement.
Yeah.
And it just like, it like shimmies like a lizard that's like glitching in and out. And it goes all the way down like super fast. It shoots up the light pole. When it gets to the top of the light pole, the light bulb explodes and the light goes out. And I was just like, am I hallucinating? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I was like, I tried to shrug it off thinking I was just losing my mind. And the next day, they had to send a road crew out to replace the light. It was toast. And that was it. That was it. It was done. And it disappeared until about 8 months ago. It came back and saw me again in like physical form. I didn't see all of it. I was in bed, and I always sleep on my side because, well, I'm sure your listeners know there's some people out there. If you're like me, we don't lay on our bed, or we don't lay on our back because, you know, we might suffocate. So we always lay on our sides. And I woke up in my room and I was laying on my back, which was kind of weird because I don't ever do that. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at my phone, like I turned my head and tapped my phone, and it was 3:30 in the morning, which is usually when all this weird stuff happens. And I was looking around and everything was black. We have blackout curtains. We've got everything's super dark in there. So it should be pitch black, but it wasn't. There was a weird, almost like a very dim, maybe like an aqua blue, maybe kind of hue, just enough where you could kind of see the outline of like the dresser and the door. And so you could kind of see where things were, but not super clear. It was just like shadows because it was so dark in there. And I'm just laying there and I was just like, huh. And then I was thinking to myself, am I awake? Because I wake up all the time at 3 o'clock. It's just between 2:30 and 3:30, I'm up. I don't know why. It always happens. Like every night. Yeah. I'm like, am I awake right now? Am I sleeping? And about that time, that same hand and that arm came from like beside me, like in towards me. Oh, and but this is what's so weird. I looked right at it and I never felt scared. I never felt threatened. It was literally almost like when you run into somebody that you saw in high school and you're like, wow, been a long time. Nice to see you again. Like I recognized it. And I never, I didn't even try to move. I just kind of laid there and just watched it. And it came just straight towards me. And I had a t-shirt on that was kind of rolled up. And it took just its pointer finger and it just ran it down my arm, like towards down my bicep. Just one finger. And it felt almost like if you were to take like a steak knife and just the tip run it down your arm. And it just did it 3 times. Almost, it was like, I kind of felt like this thing. It was like, hi again. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. And I'm going to show you. If I wanted to, I could, but I'm not going to. And then poof, it pulled the arm back and everything went back to normal. And I was just like, well, that's weird. But that next day when I got up, everything, if I touched anything electric, it died. Every computer at work I touched froze. Everything I had, my battery on my phone was just going to shit super fast. Everything was just being weird. I couldn't touch anything that was electrical that day. And then it was just
okay.
Gone.
Okay.
Right?
Whoa, and whoa. Okay, if I had a flag, I'd throw it up in the air, or I'm going to call a timeout. I'm calling a timeout. Okay. So
yeah, it's a lot. And that's just the one thing.
When you were younger, I had a little bit of this problem with my daughter. Okay. Just really quickly, not to take away from your story, but just really quickly. When my daughter was going through, when she's a teenager, she was getting bullied. And people are treating her like shit, and I was, piss his dad off. I'm about to knock some heads, right? Maybe not the best way to do it, but right? Okay.
Oh, I just punched the biggest one and knocked him out, and then I was fine.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So getting back to the story here. So one of the things that I noticed was there would be weird things around the house. And one thing I talked to a paranormal investigator, some mediums, and right. So what he explained to me was teenagers tend to, with their angst, with their, their emotions, everything like that, tend to collect spirits, tend to collect also evil spirits. So 2 things happened to me, not taking away from your story. One, when I was sitting downstairs in my man cave, I had a woman's voice right next to my ear go, John.
Oh, mine
And
just sits
then I
alone.
was
It's
sleeping
really
on
nice.
so when I was sleeping on my futon, I don't know if you ever do this to your husband. Let's say your husband's taking a nap on the couch and you come over and like drag your fingers on his back to kind of wake him up. Being a little playful,
No,
right? So
like, hey,
I
wake
felt
up.
like, yeah. So what I felt, Natasha, was exactly what you felt. These long fingernails. By the way, my wife doesn't have long fingernails. She hates them. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Only
And
get men done for him.
So anyway, I felt scraping along my back, and I felt like that's not my wife. There's something fucking
Was
scary
it hard?
behind me.
Like a soft?
Yes, it was hard. It was like
Oh, mine
digging
was
in.
like super. I mean, it was super light. It was just like if you were to barely touch it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so then when I turned around, it was gone. Now here's the thing, and maybe you can tell me this too. Once my daughter she went to therapy, thank God, and she got the help, and we talked to the people at the school and said, leave her alone or we're going to sue the shit out of you.
Yeah.
You know, one of those things where everybody's like, okay, back off. These guys are serious. And then my daughter now she's into her own and she does fine. So let me ask you this. My first question was, at that time, were you experiencing any, like you break up with a boyfriend, you were having issues, anything like that? Family things with mom and dad?
Well, I'm bipolar.
I mean, you don't have to get into it if you don't want to.
I'm bipolar. And at the time, we tried to get me help because things were just getting out of hand. And they misdiagnosed me and almost killed me.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was not good at all.
No.
And it was actually before, really. And I mean, nothing. I mean, it was my mom, my stepdad. I did sports, I did school. I mean, it really wasn't anything. Nothing really drastic happened until I was 16. So it was like the next year.
Yeah.
What if it was like my own personal Mothman? He didn't have red eyes though. Yeah? They were definitely black. And this is something but these things in general have happened. I mean, weird stuff happened before, like since I was a kid, like a little kid. I mean, they've never really stopped. So I don't know if it had anything to do with it. I mean, even after I got medicated and stuff, I got better, but none of the weird stuff stopped happening.
Yeah. So this is common to people like yourself who are extremely sensitive. I actually want to do an episode on it where some people talk about they have demons.
Yeah.
Literal demons attached to them who are not hurting them, are just basically saying, I'm here and I'm going to fuck with you. And there's not much you can do about it, right?
I think the whole purpose of this thing was it didn't want me scared. It didn't want me frightened. It wasn't one of those. It wanted me calm so that way I didn't do anything to get rid of it. I think it was siphoning something from me. I don't know if it's because I'm sensitive, because I do have this. It's so weird. If I were to put my hands up against yours but not touch you, it feels like almost like an electric current. Even though I'm not touching you, you can feel it. Like everybody else can feel it. I can do it on demand. And I almost wonder if whatever that energy is what it was trying to take from me. And maybe it just comes around every 10 years for a recharge. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it never hurt me.
So there's this famous picture, whether it's fake or not, it's still a pretty cool picture. There was this guy and he was at his wedding, and in the back, you can see for lack of a better word, like a demon's head, like in the picture right behind him. And the guy claims he's always dealt with this and he told his wife, but it's one of those pictures you look at, Natasha, and you go like, I could Photoshop that right now.
Yeah.
However, when the guy tells about his story, he says this demon has been following him forever and screwing with his life. And then when he started to turn his life and he met someone and he got married, they took a picture, and like I said, right over his shoulder is, for lack of a better word, like a dog demon, just sitting there grinning and looking fierce. And I'm like, interesting.
If it's there forever. Actually, ironically, it happened when I was 15, And then it happened again about almost 15 years later. So it's on a schedule-ish. But
Right?
what if it's a generational demon? And maybe that's why. Maybe it attaches it to a person out of the group, and it just attaches, and it is what it is.
Yeah, right. And that my last episode with the medium and stuff, where she walked into this. So they do house calls, and she walked into the house, and she immediately knew a demon was attached to the father.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to worry you, but I gotta tell you, there's a demon attached to you. And he was like, I know. And they were like,
I don't know which would be more shocking. The fact that they're not surprised, or they're like, I know.
Yeah. And this demon has literally made his and his family's life shit for years. And you say, like, well, why don't you move? It's never that easy. Why don't
it doesn't matter to me? I tell people, I'm like, it's not the house, it's me.
Yeah.
No matter where I go, this thing follows me. It's like I have a whole poltergeist posse back here, and they just are like, instead of it being like Moana, it's like Natasha.
Poltergeist posse, my new band name. We're gonna keep it. I love it.
I was like, it's just weird, or like the ghost gang, or whatever you want to call it. And because I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's nothing that is really, like I said, if I move, I mean, this stuff happens to me all the time. It doesn't just happen in my house. It happens at work. It happens at the grocery store. It does not matter where I am. It happens. Although I did have one save me from getting fired one day. So that was kind of nice.
Okay. What did you beat up the boss?
I don't know who it was. So I was burned the candle at both ends, and I was exhausted. And I didn't know we were doing something with my medicine, so I just couldn't wake up. And so I was sitting at my desk, and I had dozed off sitting at my desk. And I heard someone whisper, and they were like, Natasha. And so I jerked, and I look around, and there's no one around me. And I was like, hello? And then I kind of like dozed off again, and they're like, get up. And I jerked, and right whenever I jerked, I look over, and down this long hallway, my boss came around the corner. So this thing was like, wake up, wake up, wake up, someone's coming. Like, get your ass awake. So sometimes they're nice. Sometimes they're just kind of a pain.
Okay. Helpful. Definitely get it. So that was awesome and frightening at the same time. So like it's scary and frightening.
That was my intro.
And awesome. That's what I have my intro. So let's get
my introduction to paranormal activity. Can't get much worse than that, right? So I was ready for everything. I was like, let's do it.
You know, I love this, Natasha. I don't know about you, but I love talking to people like you. If I wouldn't do this podcast, I would never meet great people like you having these stories. I mean, I just think
I love it too, and it's so weird because I know that I'm weird, and until I started doing my podcast, it was the best way I could describe it is I was always the black sheep. Always. My whole life I've always been the black sheep.
That's what Cindy said.
Yeah, and it's always so weird, but whenever I started doing my podcast, I went to Cryptid Con last year, and when I went down there not knowing what to expect and being weird, and I was like, man, and I, again, I'm in a crowd of people, and normally that makes me very uncomfortable because I know, like, I can feel everything. But I walked in there, and it was like, instead of being a black sheep in the herd, I walked in, and I was in an entire herd of black sheep. It was amazing. Right. Everybody was so nice, even though they never met me before. They were super helpful. Right. These two girls helped me in my hotel room because I was drunk off my ass the first night, and I just met them at the bar. But they were nice enough to get me to my room. So, touche. And now I follow them on Instagram. So, hi, ladies. You know who you are.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
And it's just, and I never, for a second, felt out of place or anything. It's just knowing that there's people out there like you is very comforting.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing too, for people to know that you're not alone, because that's hard for people like us who are weird and you're like, how do I fit in? I was the weirdest nerd in high school, just really quickly. I played football and baseball, but I played D&D. I listened to heavy metal. I got into a lot of trouble. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it was like this weird collage of like, and now I'm still weird. Like, I'll tell jokes and people will stare at me. Like they'll look at me and be like,
this is morbid.
Whatever.
Like, I don't know. Like, why are you laughing? You freak. Yeah, I get that all the time too. I make jokes like that all the time. And people are always like, I don't think I should morally laugh at that. And I was like, oh, come on, it's funny. Like, I was like, I'm not going to do anything. It's hilarious.
Yeah, like lighten up. So let's get into our topic. I almost forgot our topic because I was having so much fun.
I know what it is.
Here we go.
Well, I'm ready to pounce.
Natasha, what if I told you there was a cryptid similar to Bigfoot, but maybe not as famous, but just as scary? Right? What do you think? So his name,
considering if it is a creature,
go ahead.
Most creatures come in different species, so that does not surprise me at all.
Yes. Yeah. So it could be a him, it could be a her. Yeah. And is known as Momo. And it is a local legend similar to a Bigfoot, which is reported to be in Missouri. So we're both in the Midwest. You know, it's kind of in that Midwest belt per se.
Fun fact.
And it is named. So
one, I did not intentionally. I didn't even realize that I was wearing my Bigfoot merch, and we were doing Momo. Yes. I know we were doing, but I just didn't even think about it. I just put on my Bigfoot shirt, and it's just what I felt like wearing. But anyway.
See, we're on the same wavelength. I love it.
Yes, I grew up and spent a lot of. Well, I didn't grow up. We would go at least 2, maybe 3 times a year, every single year. And at one point, I lived in Missouri.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's
and they totally missed out on a naming convention. Just saying.
Yeah. All right. So
come on,
they call it. Monster? Yeah, right. They call it the Missouri Monster, but Mizzou. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I said. They gotta name shop that. We gotta help them. But here's what it looks like. Okay, this is a little different from Bigfoot. Everybody knows Bigfoot, so I'm not going to get into it. And Natasha can fill in the gaps if she wants to. So Momo has a large pumpkin-shaped head, has a very furry body with hair covering the 2 eyes. So basically, it's Bigfoot. Except for maybe the head. I think Bigfoot, correct me if I'm wrong, Natasha, doesn't have a pumpkin head. It's more of a human head. Am I right in that, or am I off in that?
Yeah, pretty big. Sometimes people say they are. Sometimes a little like boxy, kind of almost like a gorilla. When you said hair over the eyes, I immediately went snuffleupagus.
Yes.
And I was like,
Snuffleupagus, my spooky friends, was an imaginary friend on Sesame Street that we all loved as children because him and Big Bird would hang out and nobody would see Snuffleupagus.
He was the big like elephant. He looked almost like a woolly mammoth, right? But he had like really fuzzy. I just remember his eyes. When he would blink his eyes, it'd be like hair
blink
everywhere.
His eyes, and they would. That's awesome. Oh, unlike Bigfoot, this is kind of a different timeline. Okay, so Bigfoot, I believe, was 50s, 60s, even 40s. There's a long timeline of Bigfoot. But for Momo, he was first reported in July of 1971. Now they say near Louisiana, Missouri, by Joan Mills and Mary Ryan, 2 women, which you don't hear a lot, which is kind of interesting in the cryptid game. But I love it that we have some women spotting some things. Momo was has been spotted up and down the Mississippi River. It is supposedly, like I said, he's 7 feet tall. Again, with the snuffleupagus eyes. Now, people, don't yell at me about this. I didn't write this. He eats cats and dogs and emits a terrible odor. So don't keep your dog outside or your cat outside. Momo will eat it. I've never heard Bigfoot eating cats and dogs, but Momo will eat your cat or your dog.
I might have heard some stuff about them eating small animals.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Or dogs disappearing.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right?
Most of the Bigfoot sightings and encounters, though, are in areas where they're sometimes not very close to where a dog would be. But there was a story I was listening to. Shout out to my guys, Mark, Chris, and Rob at the Cryptid podcast. They were talking. I'm pretty sure it was them. There was like a guy in this. There's a Bigfoot in the woods. He went to investigate it. And his dog went with him. The dog would like bark at the tree line, and the Bigfoot actually like killed the dog and like chucked it at him.
Whoa.
Natasha, stop. Sorry, my cat's being you bitch. I hate this cat sometimes. She's a fucking asshole. And she just dropped my Mountain Dew on the floor, so now it's fucked. Anyway, but yeah, so I have a real quick question on the description.
Yes.
So you said the head is pumpkin shaped. Is it orange like a pumpkin? Is it still hairy?
No. It's pumpkin shaped with a bunch of fur, like just covered in fur. So yeah, I don't know why they say it's pumpkin shaped, but that's what they're saying. So here's the next one that they reported, another sighting in the 70s again, which I think is always interesting. 70s always have really great setting. So at night, now this is funny. I don't know how they looked at their watch or whatever, but it says another sighting began at 3:30 p.m. at July 11th. So somebody's being really interesting here. It was reported by Terry, Wally, and Doris Harrison. And it lasted for about 2 weeks because they were following these tracks. And what they were finding was these tracks going into the woods of, like we followed Bigfoot tracks going through there and stuff. However, I'm sorry, Natasha, this turned out to be a hoax. Someone was being a dick, and going through there and doing that. So, and it turns out these two young boys were messing around, and creating that. So, it was super weird that people were doing this already, which I think is like, if you think about it, in the 70s, someone has some sightings and then everyone's starting to do fake. I don't know. That was kind of strange to me. I thought part of that story, right? Were
they all in the same area?
Yes. So I guess it got out and these two kids thought, okay, let's do that. Best. I guess so, right? So then there were more sightings of Momo later in that year, actual sightings that at one point a 20-person posse was put together to kill the beast, but the creature was never. You can't go wrong with a good
posse.
Good posse. Can you see that going into the local bar, Natasha, and be like, okay, I see the 7-foot creature that could rip our heads off. Let's kill it.
It was Missouri.
It was Missouri. So it is the 70s.
I was picturing more grab your torches and your pitchforks, not a bar. But I guess to each their own. You got a posse.
Torches, pitchforks, kill the beast. So believe it or not, there were many more sightings. There's some, if you go online, you please look at it. I'll include the links in the episode. There's a bunch of grainy footage, a bunch of grainy pictures, same old, right? However, there is one of the few surviving Momo witnesses, and I love that they say surviving, because I'm like, what, did Momo kill the rest of the witnesses? And then I realized, they're probably dead. Died of natural cause. So Richard Allen Murray told Motherboard, which I've never heard of, but okay, it must be some local paper in Missouri, that he was driving near Louisiana's Town Branch, a small creek that runs through the middle of the town. Interesting. Around 11 p.m. As he was passing a small hill, he noticed something moving. Turning his truck towards the hill, man, this is bad, his headlights illuminated a strange upright figure covered in brown hair. Murray guessed the creature was about 20 feet away, and when it realized he was there, it quickly hurried up the hill and disappeared. Now, Murray's a lifelong resident who has served as the town's fire chief. There's a little validity to this. town, and he sat on the city council. So again, a little validity that he's not some creepy weirdo. Was surprised by the sighting, and I quote, "I was amazed to see something. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense, but then I saw something," Murray said, end quote. Now, in hindsight, Murray admitted the sighting could have been nothing more than a bear, but at the time, he supposed the monster was on everyone's brain. So this is just exactly like Bigfoot, Natasha. Could it be a bear? Could it be something else? And this is cryptids in general, right? So the Beast of Bray Road, which is famous in Wisconsin, a lot of people say it's a big dog. I don't know if you've heard stories similar to that where people say it's a wolf dog.
Okay,
right?
So I like to play devil's advocate for everything that I talk about. Have y'all ever hung your coat over the chair recliner or on a coat rack, and then in the middle of the night you go out to get a little snacky snack out of the fridge, and you think there's a straight up freaking demon in there, and it's just your coat?
Yeah.
My other thing is it wasn't specific. If this damn thing was 20 feet from you, you'd have a lot more description of what it is, what it looks like. It went up the hill. Okay, was it 4 legs, 2 legs? Did it jump? Did it run? Did it skip? Was it whistling? Hollywall do a lot of day or whatever that goes? I can't remember how it goes, but it just doesn't seem like there's a lot. Even the encounters they have aren't very descriptive. And that's what's causing problems for me. I don't care how. If he's a fire chief, he's been trained. He's been trained to keep notes, to investigate, and that's the crappy ass description he gave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other encounters I read that I didn't put in here, Natasha, were basically the same. I saw something in the woods. But Momo is very shy. Let's put it this way. That was the feeling I was getting. People see it in the woods and it takes off. It's not like Bigfoot, which you've heard the stories, and if you want to share one, please do, where Bigfoots have been aggressive, where they've thrown rocks, they've thrown dead dogs, they've thrown deer, roadkill, right?
1,000,000% do not think these things are nice.
Yeah.
I do not believe these things are nice at all. They will not hesitate to kill you.
Exactly.
And you hear, there's a lot of people that say they'll be out and things are rocks are thrown at them and logs are thrown at them. And if it's, shy, that's not what you do when you're shy.
Yes, absolutely. And Bigfoot, as you know, is tied sometimes to aliens, right? To UFOs. Well, Momo, supporting in these stories, no one's ever reported he's been in a UFO, landed, and then Bigfoot's come out, or whatever crazy stories you hear, right? And it's kind of different because Momo, again, is, I think, this kind of lost. It's almost so he's like a lost puppy. I just want to eat dogs and cats and fish and leave me alone. Right?
Yeah. Just let me do my thing. Although I haven't heard any encounters or sightings where somebody actually saw Bigfoot going in and out of it. It's just a correlation between Bigfoot sightings around the same time in the same area as UFO sightings.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is one of my favorite parts, and I got to check this out. Nearly 50 years after those initial Momo sightings, indie filmmaker, I love this name, Seth Breedlove. Yes, his last name is Breedlove. Released
I know
his
some
latest
people with that name.
That's great. I love that name.
One of my teachers in elementary school.
Really? I've never heard that name in my life.
Yep.
Wow.
She was really nice too. She was awesome.
So he released a film called Momo, the Missouri Monster. In this film, Breedlove weaves together a documentary format with fake 1970s B-movie vignettes to tell the little-known story. It is a cool, campy movie destined to become a cult classic, but it also explores an often ignored aspect of cryptid mythology. So here we go. What creature sightings reflect about our world? Monsters are a reflection of where we are in history, Breedlove says, I quote, as much as they are a spooky tale to tell around the campfire, Breedlove said. Monster stories tend to change and evolve with time, matching where we are scientifically, artistically, and as a society. In a long term, they act as a window into our past, end quote. So what do you think about that? So what he's saying, that monsters evolve with us, like we're kind of keeping that legend going and keeping that when society changes, we kind of change with it. Kind of, what do you think?
Movie monsters or real monsters?
Real Bigfoot, Loch Ness, the big guys, right? Mothman,
Bullshit.
big guys. Oh, really?
Movie monsters,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But think about it. Let's see here. In the 50s, guess what? Deer were still deer.
Mm-hmm.
Butterflies were still butterflies. A cow was a cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, now they're a little different because of the hormones, but cows that were not bred just for food were cows.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
I agree.
If for those who do believe in the whole evolution bullcrap, then that doesn't make sense either, because it would take so much longer than 50 years for anything to change.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, even though how long have we had?
Right.
When was the first car made?
Early 1900s, right?
Okay, yeah. So it's been a hot minute, and those sons of bitches will still run right in front of them. They'll still run in town. They don't care. People have been here. My town's been here for hundreds of years, and they still come into town. So I think movie monsters and depictions and the stories sometimes that people tell about them changes, because it's not like now we're going to say, oh, which is, I think, kind of a little bit upsetting sometimes, because it does kind of, so let's think thrillers, right? So you watch a thriller movie. Now, if somebody were to pick up a rotary phone or an actual landline, everybody'd be like, I don't get it. What is that?
Yeah. Right.
Like, so they now have to do like, oh, your phone lost service, or so those things, yes. Or people be like, well, why don't you just Google it? You know what I mean? So you've got to change for that. But I feel like if the encounters and the sightings and stuff are changing with the times with us, they're probably fake. Yeah. Because a good old-fashioned monster in the woods is a good old-fashioned monster in the woods, and they don't need Wi-Fi or a camera or anything to mess you up. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. So here's something I thought was really funny. This is common, as we know, especially in a capitalist society. So some monsters, like the Mothman of West Virginia, have a huge following. And if you know anything about that, you see the Mothman statues, and there's Mothman pizza at this local restaurant, and they have a yearly festival. So Momo, this is funny. Momo, unfortunately, poor Momo, he never made it into the big leagues with Mothman. And I think there's like, by the way, we should have an episode one day of who's in the big leagues cryptids, who's in the minor leagues of cryptids. And he was left, and we'll talk about that. I was just going to bring that up. He was brought up in this town, and what they did, it didn't help that he's like this kind of like Mr. Snuffleupagus, this lumbering creature, and iconic Bigfoot, right? But there's some people, Jason Offit, who lives in this town where Momo is supposed to be. He says, I believe Louisiana, Missouri tried to have Momo festivals, but the townspeople never really cared that much. Poor Momo. So they've tried to have this Momo festival, and everybody's like,
Momo.
The big, I know,
I'd
poor
go to a Momo festival.
So would I. So the big difference between the Mothman and Momo is that Mothman at least collapsed the Silver Bridge and killed people. So
Well,
I
he
guess
didn't use the
Momo.
bridge.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He didn't tear the bridge down.
No, he didn't. But he's Mothman's associated with that.
Yeah, true.
Momo hasn't like killed the mayor in public or something. And he goes, I hate to put it this
sex
way.
tape from Momo.
Right, exactly. But as much as I love a good Bigfoot story, the big guys become too common, which I agree in popular culture to attract that much attention. So, according to Murray, most people in Louisiana, Missouri just don't care anymore. There were people that were afraid, but it's not something that has a tremendous lasting effect, he said. Most of the young people don't even know anything about it. Come on, young people. And Momo and many other cryptids are indicative of a broader issue. Once bustling rural communities with booming populations and industries are slowly decaying, with younger populations moving to cities and many small towns are fading away. I don't know about that so much anymore.
That's
with
not
the
a real
price
small
of houses.
town.
Yeah. Much like their monster legends. And then he says, like Point Pleasant again, they pivoted to the Mothman and has made a successful economic adventure. Other towns, again, were not so lucky. But for a brief moment in time, Louisiana, Missouri caught the wave. This is a really small, intimate story about this tiny town that was dramatically affected by the sightings, Breedlove explained. Breedlove's talking again. Here I quote, I always jump at any opportunity I can find to tell stories in a way that challenged us. As our world changes, so too were our monsters. So that's pretty much it about Momo, which I just look at stories like we were talking earlier, Natasha, that are not the big ones. Try to look at a smaller cryptid story. But what do you think of Momo? Are you a little sad? I'm like sad for Momo.
I don't know if I could even throw my hat in the ring. So if Momo had made more appearances,
yeah,
I feel like it would have taken off a little more.
Yeah.
Another question is, did it describe at any point how long its hair was?
Just they say long hair, like covering its body, like just long.
Well, there is a genetic defect that causes a person to literally grow hair on every inch of their body.
Yeah.
What if he's just some poor circus freak? That's a horrible way to put him. I can't think what else to call it. Like, you know what I mean? Like the dog boy or whatever.
Right?
That and between not having very many sightings and then the sightings not having enough evidence to even prove they were sightings.
Right.
I'm leaning towards Momo's bullshit.
Yeah, this is a no for me too.
Or if anything, maybe it was a Bigfoot, like a juvenile Bigfoot, that just was exploring and went too far, or got lost, or something. Maybe.
Right.
If I was really reaching, I'm reaching hard.
I hear ya.
Yeah. But I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't like to poo-poo any of them necessarily, but I just, with the fact that one guy says that he saw it 20 feet away but didn't describe it at all, kind of screams.
Like,
I mean, why couldn't and he says that, it ran. It's a figure. Well, that could have been a damn bear.
Yeah, it could have been.
Because it's not like you said, oh, the thing was running on 2 feet. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe it wasn't a bear. But them just saying, oh, it took off. I'm like, I'm feeling bear.
Yeah. So am I.
And even if they don't have brown bears, it could be, what if it's a black bear that just so happened there's clay deposits around the Midwest everywhere. It could have just been rolling around and just got covered. It looked brown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I call bullshit on this too. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for Momo. He never made it into the big time. So speaking of that, Natasha, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who's in the big time of cryptids? Who's the major? Who's the OG
that I believe are real, or that everybody talks about?
that you believe are real.
Okay.
Who's the OG? Who's the
obviously Bigfoot?
Bigfoot. Yeah. Bigfoot.
I would say so. I'm also on the fence for this one too. So there's Dogman, Werewolf. To me, Hellhound. To me, they all could be interchangeable. It could be the same thing. Of being misidentified, right? So, but that's definitely up. That's had a big spike in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe. I think Nessie's bullshit. I just probably hurt a lot of people's feelings, but it's okay. Chupacabra is also bullshit.
Really? Well, I'm gonna call you on Chupacabra.
The dog choop is bullshit. The lizard choop from Mexico is legit. That I'll agree.
Okay. All right.
Let's see here. Mothman, obviously.
Yeah. How about Dogman?
I wrapped him up with werewolves. Goober.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Hellhound's
Goatman. Goatman.
Oh, Goatman. I do have an interesting theory that makes sense with Goatman.
Okay, let me hear it.
Aside from my theory, I say bullshit. Okay, so let's see. Have you ever seen the movie or the show Fringe?
Yeah, good show.
Okay, so like a portal. So there's a portal like that in these weird places because that's a lot of people do. They say there's portals and all this stuff. Now let's think about the fact of, in theory, when you walk through, say, a wormhole or a portal, all of your molecules dismember and then they re-emerge on the other side. What if this poor lonely farmer and one of his poor little goats was just walking and they just slipped into the portal and all their molecules got jumbled up and then put together as a goat man?
I love it.
That I decided it's a portal in the basement of hell, and the goat men are like all in hell, and they're like, "Hey, Fred, go get a can of beans in the basement," and then he like slips into the portal. And he's like, "Ah, shit," and then he just shows up. I like the farmer one better.
I love that theory. I'm like, shit, look at me now. What the hell? Okay, so, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to think of cryptid related stuff.
How about, Wendigo? Wendigo. Huh?
I don't know about a Wendigo.
Skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers. I don't think they're cryptid.
They're in a different category.
They might exist, but I think they're more demonic, something maybe a little more magical or spiritual, not so much a cryptid. Okay. My favorite cryptid, I would like to say it works, but I think it's bullshit, but I still love him. It's Snallygaster.
Snallygaster.
Snally's my favorite. Yep.
I was going to ask you your favorite. Thank you for answering.
My fave.
Yes, please tell my spooky friends if they don't know what the Snallygaster is.
So, long story short, well, I guess it's a short story shorter. Yeah. It came from Germany. So the German immigrants came over, and along came this. Well, they call it the Snellgeist, but we translate it into Snallygaster because it's better anyway. And basically, this thing is like a bird lizard hybrid thing with like these big wings and this long tail. It's like 30 feet long, so like a school bus. And it's got this huge tail, and it's got a beak. It's got one eye, and these like steel claws. Like they appear to be like steel because they're strong and sharp. Yeah. And some accounts say that it's got these like massive tentacles that come out, and it'll sanguinate your ass.
Yeah. My favorite one is not a cryptid, but it's called a puck wedgie. You ever heard of a puck wedgie? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you had that one. Yeah.
We supposedly have them in northern Indiana. That was actually one of my first episodes I did.
Yes, and I did an episode too with the puck wedgies. Those are crazy. So, all right, before we wrap up here, I could talk to you for hours, Natasha. You're so awesome. Here's the thing. You already said favorite cryptid, favorite conspiracy, just off the top of your head. Favorite conspiracy.
Project Sunshine.
Ooh, good one. Please explain to my spooky friends, what is Project Sunshine?
I'll do another long story. This one is the long story short. So basically back around the time we started doing nuclear bomb testing, the government decided that they needed to figure out the after effects of the nuclear warfare would have on humans. So they were at first asking for people to donate their body to science and then testing it. Well, then they found out that the younger the skin, the better and more accurate the results were. So then they started taking toddlers, infants, babies, like stillborn babies, anything that was like the earlier the better. And they would take them and test them. Well, then they would even get so bad because they needed more and more and more, and nobody was wanting to give up their child, to be chopped into pieces or whatever and tested. So they came up with an entire group of people, like like a team, and they would go around, and I'm talking, say your toddler, choked on a grape and died, which is horrible and tragic. And you were going to have your kid cremated for whatever reason. The government would show up, they would look at the kid, and they might saw off a leg, an arm, whatever. Hell, they might sometimes take the whole damn body, and then they would give the parents fake ashes and say it was their child to test it.
That was terrible.
And it's actually, the conspiracy itself was just that the government was basically grave robbing to test for the nuclear side effects, but it actually was much worse than even the conspiracy imagined.
Yeah. My favorite conspiracy that turned out to be true, MK Ultra, testing of LSD. That's crazy. Go please look that up. I might do an episode on it, but it's pretty much out there. You can find pretty much all that stuff. So, Natasha, again, thank you for being on the show. You're amazing. I would love to have you back on anytime you want, because we haven't scratched the surface on certain other conspiracy cryptids and everything like that. But why don't you tell my spooky friends about your merch and episodes coming up so they can check you out?
So as for my merch, I'm super excited because I've done everything on my website. So if you go to www.cryptidscreepsandconspiracy.com, I think I already sent them to you. There's a little link at the top that says merch. Just click on it. It'll take you to the store. Everything on there, I design all of it myself. I even created the website. I set up anything related to my podcast. My hands are the only ones that have touched it. So I design all of that. I just today set up my stuff here that I can now create my own merch instead of just designing it and having somebody else make it. So I'm going to be designing all kinds of crap. There's going to be stuff all over my house with random shit on it because I'm going to be messing with it, trying to figure it out. But
love it. I
can even make plates. I can make a cryptid or something like a cryptic edition plates from my episodes. I could put stuff on my the different creatures and stuff on the plates, and then I could make a set and you could collect them. How cool would that be?
Oh, that's awesome. I'm
pretty excited about that. A side project a lot of people don't know about. I'm waiting. I haven't done it yet. I also write poetry, and I have a few out there right now, poems that I write, and I want to get a collection of them out. So I eventually want to publish some and have one for cryptids, one for spooky stuff or whatever, and all that stuff. So I want to do that. I got a lot of things in the works, but I also, just so you guys know, September, the last weekend of September, I'm going to be in Nashville, Indiana, because I'm a vendor, Indiana Bookstore Conference. And then in November, I'm going to be at CryptidCon in Lexington. I don't have a vendor booth there, but I'm still going to go and party hard and have a good time. So I do try to get out. I plan on being at Paracon next year, whether I'm a vendor or not. I'm going to be there because I had an absolute blast this year. And I've considered maybe adding in a little live show. Possibly. It's on the fence.
Nice.
And are you ready? Do you want to know what it is? Because nobody knows about it. You'd love to be the first one. Friday Night Fight Club. News. Yeah, Friday Night Fight Club. So I would take maybe 2 or 3 cryptids, and we would talk kind of a quick summary, and then which one would win, and we'd battle, and then the next one goes to the next week, and then you'd pick another one, and then so we could duke them out. And I feel like that'd be so much fun.
I love that. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, I can't pull the trigger on the other thing. Just
yeah.
It'll probably be within the next month. You guys should know about it. And it's going to be another collab with another podcast who is absolutely phenomenal. I love her. But I can't say anything necessarily about it yet because we're still getting things together. And we want to get a little bit of a cushion before we release. So just in case something happens. But yeah, we got some stuff coming down the pike. And I'm on all social media. So I'm on TikTok, Threads, X, Instagram, Facebook. Listening wise, I'm everywhere. Anything from Amazon, Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify. I mean, I'm on platforms I've never even heard of before until they showed up on my thing. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got anything, you can even listen on your computer. You don't even have to have a platform or download an app or nothing. You just open it up on the website and my episodes are right there.
Yeah. So again, I will put all Natasha's links in the episode notes. Please go check her out. She, again, is amazing. She has some great stories. Her podcast is awesome. Buy some merch from her. Support your local podcaster because we're just doing this for the love.
Shirt. It was my first Dogman shirt that sold. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, so buy a shirt, buy whatever she's got out there. Support her because you know she loves what she's doing. This is something that makes her podcast better because we're all indie people out here just trying to make it, you know.
Yep.
So anything you can do to support her.
If anybody there has any experiences or encounters, it doesn't matter if they're cryptids, spooky, just weird random shit that happens to you. You can submit all of those in the contact form on the website too, because when I get enough put together, I'll be able to do my second listener stories episode.
Oh, I love that. I love it. And, you know, I've listened to some episodes. They're all great. So just pick one that you're interested in. Reach out to Natasha if you got any questions or comments or stories. Please do. So again, Natasha, love you. Love to have you back on. I look forward to all the different things that are coming up. So much stuff. And please visit her at the different locations, and she'll be attending the different shows. And say hi to her. Come up to her and say hi. She's totally cool.
My hair is really orange when you put me in the light.
Awesome. So we end every show this way. We say hi to our ghost, even though I know your ghost is kind of a dick. But say, hello, ghost.
Not all dicks. Some of them are nice.
Well, there you go. Okay. And then we say, stay spooky.
Stay spooky, suckers.
Thanks, Natasha. Awesome. Bye.